Okay, the next pattern to show you is an olive. It's a very popular fly on our local rivers, and there's a few points I want to show you before I start. Will you notice this has got a thorax on it, which I like on a fly. It's got it there, and also the flattish sort of profile, because this fly, I like to fish it quite low in the water. You don't need to do that. It's entirely up to you, but if you don't want that sort of profile, you just wind the hackle as normal. I'll show you how I achieve this as we go along. Okay, I'll just put this to one side for a moment. That was one just to show you. Now, the hook I'm using is a size 12. Now, I tend to, early in the season, use a 14, but I'm using a 12 here because it may come up on the demonstration better. And the silk is my usual 8/0 uni thread. This particular reel is black. That's simply because the label is worn off the ones I'm using. And this one, I'm going to use a brown silk. The colour of the silk is not too important. You can use a brown or a yellow. I just like to have this, I just happen to have this brown in my bobbin holder. Okay, I've waxed the silk, given it a couple of waxes, and I'm now going to start the fly. As usual with me, 3 winds forward, 1, 2, 3, then 3 winds back, which has secured our silk. I can leave the bobbin hang and I've secured it. But to carry on, I'm going to take the silk down towards the bend of the hook, and in touching turns, and by keeping the silk at this angle, it gets down, it gives touching turns easier. I'll remove this little bit of surplus here now, ready to tie in the tail. This is an olive fly. I've got an olive cock hackle. With dry flies, everything is a cock hackle in my opinion. So I'm going to, I don't know if you can see that, I've drawn the tips down to get them in line, and I'm going to tie them on. They should more or less stay in line, something like that. The tail is normally the length of the hook, length of the shank. I like it a bit longer on my dry flies, so I'm going to do it about there, put it on about there. And when I remove the surplus, you'll see I'm still keeping sort of fairly close turns, because I'm going to put one strand of a hurl body on, and I don't want a lumpy body to wind over. Okay, I'm going down towards the bend still, and because I want this tail to splay out, this fly I think is better fished in the surface film, so I put a wind underneath. Now that tends to splay out the tail. Is it possible to see that? I'm not quite sure if you can see it or not, but that splays it out, and it's a good little tip. Okay, the body I will cut from a big feather. This is a goose feather. You may be able to pick up a swan feather. Nobody kills swans these days, so you may find a swan feather down the river, particularly on the Owenny where there are several swans, or down at the pond in St Bride's Majors. If you do get the chance of a swan feather, take it, because it's worth dyeing it then an olive colour like this, a greeny colour. I use the Dylon nylon dye, which I get from Dunelm. Now, this body, what we do here is we cut off just one of these fibres like that. Just one. I think I missed it there. Cut it off and remove it like this. Proving a bit hard to get. I must keep missing it somehow. Okay, I've got more than one now. I'll just part this and split them out, that's better. And there's the one I was trying to get off. Okay, you see it's wide one end, narrow the other end. We always tie material in at the bend by the narrow end, which is about there. Don't need too much on this fly, and I'll secure it there. Now I'll just cut off this waist, and I'll cut everything at a sort of angle so that when it lies down there's no lumps. That's what I'm hoping to achieve. If I cut it straight, we'd have a step. Okay, I'm going to cover these waist roots now and take the silk up towards the thorax position. The thorax position is about there. I'm going to put a thorax on this fly, which I don't know if you've seen me do before. Anyway, before I wind this body material on, I'm going to touch the shank of the hook over that silk with varnish just to make the body secure. I don't put a lot, and I only put it my side. That's a personal thing, because the way I tie a body, I tend to hold my finger over the other side, and you'll see me do that now. This is what I tend to do. It's a habit of mine. Everyone will develop their own way of doing things. Now this single hurl body, along one edge, has got a furry piece which sort of stands up when you wind it. I don't quite know what it's called, but it does give a natural looking body and a segmented sort of appearance to the fly. It's a bit small to handle, so I hope my fingers are not in your way. I hope to give you a better view of it in a moment or two. We get up to there where I can secure it. One wind, and now I secure it. Now, can you see that body? I'm not sure if you can. I hope you can, because it does make a nice body. It does not absorb water. It's pretty good. Good for a dry fly. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is tie in something to go under the thorax, under the hackle. I will show you this as we go along, rather than me try to explain it. And I'm using for this peacock herl, but it's sword. Peacock sword herl. It's got a beautiful shine, greeny shine. I'm not sure if it's coming through, but I tie it under like this, and this now is going under the shank like this, up and under like that. And to sort of get it down the middle, I try to straighten it a little bit so it's hanging underneath. I'll secure that, and I'll nip off that waist, taking care not to cut my silk, which happens. And now a single strand of herl, peacock herl. This is from the long feather, not the sword feather. And I'm just tying this. This will go behind the hackle, and I will wind this now. There's no need to put a thorax. I like it. I think it looks well. And all natural flies, all insects in fact, have three parts to them: a body, a thorax, and a head. So it's I think they benefit from it. And I don't put too much, that's all. And I'll be winding my hackle a little bit over it in a moment or two. Just secure that, a couple of turns, and I'll nip it off. So what we've got here now, I've got the tail on, I've got the body on, I've got the thorax, and I've got this hanging down under here, which I will be using shortly. Now I'm going to apply the hackle. You can put wings on this fly. I don't bother with it on this particular fly because I like this fly to sit low in the surface film. Now, I don't think the wings help it a lot, but occasionally I tie wings on it just to get it going, just for practice more than anything. Okay, I'm now going to tie on the hackle. The hackle is one I've dyed again with Dylon dye. It's a very light olive, and it's from a saddle hackle. That's the area from the cockerel, from the rooster, that I like. They're expensive to buy, these saddle capes, but I think they represent pretty good value for money, because you can tie several flies out of one hackle. When they're long like this, they're a little bit funny to handle, but they're okay. You'll get into them all right. I'm going to try to put a figure of 8, which is a little bit harder with a long hackle like this, but it's worth persevering. Figure of 8 is over one way, then over the other, then over again, and over again. The idea is to get the hackle on straight at a 90 degrees, square I should say, not straight. Now this piece of stalk, I've pulled it back and I'm going to tie it down to give the hackle a lock, so that it's locked in and doesn't come out when I tie it down. They can pull out, and strangely enough they tend to pull out with good quality hackles, which this is, and it's a strong, good quality hackle. Now that's the hackle ready for winding. So I'm now going to wind it, get up to this thorax a bit, and I'm just going to wind in front of this thorax and work my way slowly towards the eye. And I got enough turns there. That one wind holds it for a moment till I get another couple on. Okie doke, I'm there now. And now I'm going to nip off the hackle. As usual, keep your scissors closed until you're up against it. Then nip it off like that. Now I'll do a bit of securing just to make sure. I'll push these hackles back. You can use this special expensive tool, which is a pen, an old pen. It can just push the hackles back a bit like that. It'll help you a bit to do that. We'll get them back a bit. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with this peacock sword. I chose the peacock sword because of his greeny olivey colour. And I'm going to tie this now underneath the hackle. So what I do, I draw up these hackles for the time being. You may not want to do this, it doesn't matter if you do it or not. I draw them up like this. Get them up, taking my time. Draw them up. And now with this sword, this peacock sword, hurl, I bring it up underneath towards the front of the fly like that, and I secure it underneath. While it's like that, before I form the head, I cut it off. Very careful not to cut the silk, which I've done more than once. Now push it back again, and I'm going to finish the head and secure everything down nice and tight. One or two little hackles showing there. Now what I'm attempting to do with this, drawing this peacock herl underneath, is I'm attempting to give the fly a low down profile so it lies on the water, and it gives the fly, in my opinion, a better, we'll call it a footprint, the way a natural fly would be. An olive on the water, I'm jumping ahead here, I'm doing my whip finish as I'm talking to you, force of habit, but the olive on the water tends to have its legs spread out, and if you think of the profile of a round wound hackle, a normal shoulder hackle, it's the middle of the fly would be round, whereas this now has got a flatter profile with the hackles sort of each side. I'm not quite sure if you'll be able to see it, but I'll show you on the one I tied earlier, and looking from the back you may be able to see it as well, like that and like that, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'll attempt to show you, but also the peacock herl underneath has got a lovely shine, and I think it makes the fly attractive with that thorax. I'm trying to revolve this a little bit, hoping you can see it. Okay, a couple of little jobs now to finish off. One, varnish the head. At the start of my fly tie-in, I always give my varnish a good shake, so it may not, you may think I'm not doing much of a shake now. I just touch the head with the brush which I've tapered from my Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails, and I'm sure that's it. Finally, as with every fly, wet, dry, whatever, clear the eye. I like to use an old bit of hackle, bit of feather, that will go up through and clear the eye, like that, like a bottle brush. You can do that once or twice if you want to, or you can clear it with your dubbing needle. That's clear, but if it was a dubbing needle, I'd do this. If you're down the river and you found you've got a blocked eye, you can use another hook to clear it, but hopefully that shouldn't arise. Okay, now that's just about all I want to tell you about that fly. I recommend it, but as the season goes on, the olives get larger, so I'll move from a size 14 to a size 12. I don't go larger than that for a dry fly. And darker. And to make that darker, I would simply wind, in combination with this hackle, a brown hackle with it. So I would spiral wind in open turns one, and then spiral wind the other, so that I can get the two on. Spiral means I'd get a bit of a gap between them to take the other. If you wind one hackle tight, the second hackle will sort of fold the first fibres down. Okay, hope you enjoyed that and picked up a few tips, and thanks for watching.